so we got a recess appointment. Next thing that this president did was to enact what is called the DREAM Act. Remember the DREAM Act? Where he allowed illegal aliens to become citizens of the United States by the stroke of his pen, which violated the law that was in place in 1996, signed into law by Bill Clinton and passed by the legislature, that any illegal alien is discovered, you put them in the pipeline and deport them. How many know that's on the book right now? And so what we have is a conflict between an executive order and Congress who wrote a law. I knew John Boehner would stand up. I said, look, I'm waiting for John, man. Come on, John. Take to the floor of the well of the House and declare that this is unconstitutional, and we render it null and void. I'm still waiting for John. I'm really frustrated now. I'm saying, what should we do when the government is acting in an unconstitutional way, is violating the Constitution of the United States? What do we do? And so I went to the Constitution again, and I looked at the First Amendment. And in the First Amendment are 5 platforms. You know what they are. Freedom of religion, forbidding the government to interfere with our exercise thereof, free speech, free press. And then the 5th one. I looked at the 5th one very carefully, and I looked at it over and over again. The right for the people to peaceably assemble and to petition redress for grievance. I said, this is an interesting idea. Look, I'm 60 years old. I come out of the 20th century. Yes, I'm a 20th century boy. And I don't remember ever our nation or the people of the United States ever petitioning for grievance against our nation, against our government. And here we are in the 20th century with our government, all 3 branches involved in unconstitutional acts. And too many of us are sitting at home wringing our hands saying, what can we do? There is something we can do. We can indeed petition redress. What is redress? Redress is a remedy for a wrong or an ill that has been perpetrated against we, the people. And men and women, unconstitutional acts coming out of the executive branch, out of the legislative branch, and out of the judiciary requires a response from we, the people. We, the people. We need to respond. We need to respond. I want to remind you what Judge Roberts did was completely unconstitutional. How many lawyers in here? Unconstitutional. Judge Roberts went beyond the enumerated limitations specified to the Supreme Court inside the Constitution. He was not to legislate or write or make this Obamacare into law, and that's what he did. That's what he did. He made it a law. I'm sorry, Mr. Roberts, you went beyond the enumerated limitations specified to the Supreme Court in the Constitution. And you know who should have stood up and said something about it? Johnny Boehner said nothing, not a word. And by the way, the element that was ruled on, that was attacked, was that which was crafted inside the Senate. Therefore, the House of Representatives had no say in the crafting of it. And according to the Constitution, it has to start where? House. Already we got a way to defeat it if somebody's reading the Constitution. And so I'm saying there's something we can do, but in order for the frame this thing to get you to understand the level to which the power of our government resides within our hands, let me give you a couple of ideas that I read in a book called We Still Hold These Truths by Matthew Spaulding. In his introduction, he says something that I think is applicable today. Listen to what he says. He says, quote, "Our revolution was about the idea upon which a new nation was to be established. Permanent truths applicable to all men at all times. As Abraham Lincoln later said and proclaimed that the principles rather than will would be the ultimate grounds of government. Principles rather than will. We're under the will of the government now and not the principles that guided this nation for so long. But hear what Matthew said. He said, these are permanent truths. This contradicts the whole idea that this Constitution is a living document. If it is indeed a living document, then Matthew is wrong, because he's talking about permanent truths. Truths that are the same yesterday, today, and forever. These truths do not change with men. For these who have founded our nation grabbed these truths, these principles, from the great document, the oldest document, the ancient book, the Holy Bible. Thomas Jefferson said of one of those principles in the Declaration of Independence, and if those who believe in a malleable living document are right, then what Jefferson says here can be changed. Jefferson said in the second paragraph of that document, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Unalienable rights, rights that are sourced in God, not in man. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. If that principle is malleable, then men are not necessarily created equal if there is an arbitrary power elite who will ultimately determine what is right and wrong. Hello?
That's scary.
Men and women, that's where we are. But here Matthew says these are permanent truths. And that's why I'm up today. That's why I'm standing out at the tip of the spear, because I see men who are changing these principles deliberately to fit their purposes as opposed to the purpose that they were originally intended to fulfill.